Tonight, as states across the country gear up to distribute COVID vaccines,
we could be seeing people getting vaccinated Monday, Tuesday of next week.
The coronavirus death rate soars, the latest on the pandemic in America. Plus, concerns over changes in abortion policies under a Biden administration.
We're hopeful that he will not be able to take some of his policies to fruition.
Why some worry about the future fight for life. And China's growing threat to America and beyond. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. A critical moment in the fight against the coronavirus. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, a final decision on Pfizer's vaccine is still pending after an FDA advisory panel officially okayed the shot for emergency use. Still, health experts are warning everyone to stay vigilant. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener is here now with the latest. Tara.
John, even with the vaccine, officials say the next few months could be the deadliest. This is nearly 3 million doses are about to be shipped to more than 600 locations nationwide.
The FDA informed Pfizer that they do intend to proceed towards an authorization for their vaccines.
Hope on the horizon.
We do have a favorable vote.
A day after an FDA advisory committee recommends emergency use of the first vaccine against the virus.
I do believe that the data is now clear that the vaccines appear to be safe and effective.
Pharmacy giants Walgreens and CVS standing by to get the vaccine out, with first doses earmarked for healthcare workers and nursing home residents.
We expect to be able to go to every single facility that has selected us as a partner within 3 to 4 weeks to provide the first dose.
And soon officials are looking for more FDA-authorized vaccines from Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and potentially others in the pipeline. This news as the U.S. hits up to 3,000 plus deaths a day. For hospitals struggling to keep up, relief can't come soon enough.
12 days ago, everything was under control. We went from a very manageable census to, getting overwhelmed.
Experts are urging people to not let their guards down.
The vaccines are going to be enormously helpful, but it will take a couple of months before they really start having an effect. And it's particularly important people be careful right now.
Some states, like Arkansas, are seeing deaths double since last week. In Massachusetts, a newly reopened field hospital is treating more patients than expected. Virginia's governor just announced a midnight curfew. Pennsylvania is banning all events with more than 50 people and restricting restaurants as well. So is New York City.
In New York City, you put the CDC caution on indoor dining together with the rate of transmission and the density and the crowding. That is a bad situation.
Rollout of the vaccine is being called the biggest logistical operation in U.S. history. On Capitol Hill, FedEx and UPS executives explaining how their companies are planning to ship the vaccine within hours of FDA authorization. John.
A Herculean task. Thank you so much, Tara. Well, joining us now is Dr. Kevin Pham. He is a visiting policy analyst with the Heritage Foundation. Dr. Pham, great to see you. How soon after people start getting vaccinated might we begin to see the tide turn in the right direction?
Now, it's going to take a little bit of time because the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine are both 2-dose regimen vaccines, and the doses are three weeks apart. So the soonest we're going to start seeing an effect of this, the full effect of the vaccine, is going to be about 4 weeks. You give it about a week after the second dose before the antibodies really build up. It's going to take at least 4 weeks since the first person gets injected with these vaccines before you see any effect. So we're really not going to see much of a change until maybe midweek of January.
Well, what does today's White House threat trying to force FDA authorization do to public confidence in a vaccine?
I would say that, I would be very confident in this vaccine because Pfizer has done its due diligence, and we're not the first one to have the vaccine approved. They're already getting the vaccine up in Canada and over in the UK. So we're not doing this faster than anybody else. And they don't have, I don't suspect they have any information that we don't have, and I don't suspect we're waiting on information that they don't have either.
Well, Dr. Pham, we keep getting warnings of the darkest days ahead. I want to get your thoughts on how to balance public health safety concerns to counter the current trend against the concerns of business owners who fear going under with the new round of restrictions.
What this really requires is a concerted effort by all of us to take personal responsibilities. We all need to take a good look at the risk in our own lives and in those who are around us. For instance, over Thanksgiving, I had some friends over, but they were all in the low risk age group. And since then, I hadn't seen anybody who was older. So you can section yourself off to mitigate the risk. If I'm going to see my parents this Christmas, I'm not going to see anybody else. I'm not going to go out with my friends until I've seen my parents already.
Good advice there. Dr. Kevin Pham, we appreciate your insights, and thank you so much for making time for us today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, a scramble on Capitol Hill as lawmakers try to negotiate a last-minute deal on a coronavirus relief package. With time running out to get a measure passed before the holiday recess, the bipartisan blame game is putting a damper on any hopes of a deal.
Struggling families, exhausted health workers, and anxious small business owners are waiting for the Senate to do what I've tried to accomplish over and over for months. Pass a significant, targeted COVID relief bill built on all the areas where a bipartisan consensus already exists.
At a time of such great crisis, there's one reason why America's two major parties have not gotten together during a time of acute national emergency. And that is because the Republican leader has demanded a partisan poison pill.
For a vote to take place before the recess, lawmakers would have to come up with a final language of the legislation by this weekend. Well, to the election challenge, the Texas Attorney General's lawsuit is gaining ground among Republicans in the House. The goal is for the Supreme Court to overturn election results favoring Biden in 4 key swing states. While multiple attorneys general from other states have already joined their lawsuit, more than 100 House Republicans are also throwing in their support, signing an amicus brief which reads in part, "This brief presents concern as members of Congress, shared by untold millions of their constituents, that the unconstitutional irregularities involved in the 2020 presidential election cast doubt upon its outcome and the integrity of the American system of elections." At a White House Hanukkah ceremony, President Trump expressed his appreciation for the lawsuit.
We have tremendous cases right now, a big case. 18 states, as of this moment, 18 states. They joined out of respect and out of love after they read the papers. But they read the papers. I want to thank Texas for starting it. They read the papers, and the papers were so compelling that everybody's just joining. I understand a lot of congressmen and women are joining.
Meanwhile, today, President Trump lost a Wisconsin lawsuit aimed at overturning Joe Biden's win there. Well, Attorney General Bill Barr knew about recently announced investigations into Hunter Biden prior to the election. And according to the Wall Street Journal, he worked to keep them out of the news cycle. We learned this week about multiple investigations into the finances and business dealings of Joe Biden's son, Hunter. The Wall Street Journal reports the Attorney General found out about them months ago, but kept them out of the public spotlight during the lead up to the election. The president angrily tweeted last night, quote, "Why didn't the fake news media, the FBI, and the Department of Justice report the Biden matter before the election?" Well, joining us now is David Brody, CBN chief political analyst. David, the Wall Street Journal says Barr resisted pressure from congressional Republicans for information on the investigation. David, why did the Attorney General keep them quiet?
Well, we don't have a full explanation of this, of that point. I think, what was it? I Love Lucy, when Ricky says to Lucy, "Lucy, you got a lot of splaining to do." I think that's exactly what a lot of conservatives want out of Bill Barr right now. They don't really understand the reason that he would keep it quiet. Now, I have a feeling what you're going to hear is DOJ protocol. You'll hear that there were certain rules and guidelines of why he needed to kind of keep it hush-hush, but I don't think any of that's going to satisfy Donald Trump.
In addition to maybe hearing about DOJ protocol, AG Barr recently said there is no evidence of fraud in the election, a direct challenge, of course, to the president's claims. Now this report comes out. David, could this be the president's final straw for Barr to be on the chopping block?
Yeah, I think so, John. I mean, let's go back to Jeff Sessions for a moment, the first attorney general. Let's remember that Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions had a very close relationship, a much closer relationship he had with Sessions than Bill Barr. And so now you've got this situation with Bill Barr. First of all, the election, as you mentioned, the fact that he said to date, at least he found no widespread allegation or widespread fraud out there. And now this. That seems like too much for Donald Trump to handle, because Donald Trump not only believes there was election fraud in this election, he also believes that Bill Barr should not have held that Hunter Biden information now as well, because I can guarantee you that Donald Trump believes if that Hunter Biden information was out before the election, indeed, it would have made a difference.
David, turning to the big news now in Washington, the Texas election case. The two highest-ranking members of the House GOP, Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy and Majority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana, both signed an amicus in support of the lawsuit. They're joined by more than 100 others in the GOP conference. David, what does that say that some of the most influential members of the Republican Party are now backing this case?
Well, it's obviously a big deal. And, it makes me think of something that Laura Trump told me the other day. And we'll run some of that at some point here on Faith Nation and the 700 Club. But she told me that Donald Trump is king, this is her words, king of the Republican Party. And that's, I think, exactly what we're seeing. 106 Republicans in the House. You've got the leader of the Republicans in the House, Kevin McCarthy, and Steve Scalise as well, his deputy, doing it. So, look, you don't want to cross Trump. Because let's just assume he loses. If he does lose, he'll be back. I know the liberals feel like he's like Freddy Krueger. You can't keep him down. You can't kill him. He'll come back in 2024. He will. So I think everybody's kind of keeping their powder dry.
David, rebuffing White House threats of a veto, both the House and Senate overwhelmingly passed a defense spending bill with more than 2/3 majority support in the Senate. David, does this set up a situation where Republicans will override a presidential veto?
Yes. Period. End. All caps. Yes. And John, just so you know, there have been Republicans that have told the president privately, don't do it. Don't die on the sword for Section 230, the social media issue that he wants to die on this veto for. They say, look, not with the national defense bill. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Give the troops the pay raise that they need. This would be the first veto he would do, which would basically not give troops a pay raise. And so they say, just don't do it. But I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to veto it. And then Republicans would definitely override that veto.
Well, how does that square up with him being the king of the party?
Well, you're right, but I think in this case, that's a really good question. But I think in this case, John, you're talking about the troops, you're talking about the military, you're talking about kind of a line in the sand, no pun intended. And I think when push comes to shove, these senators and congressmen have districts they serve, and they have a lot of military members in those districts. And I think that, look, politics drives everything. And if he's king of the Republican Party, that's politics. But you know what is also politics? Constituents in your districts who are off as well.
All right. We'll have to leave it there. CBN's David Brody, thank you so much, and have a great weekend, David.
You too, John. Thanks.
Up next, preparing for a coming fight for the pro-life movement. We explain when Faith Nation returns.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Well, welcome back. Even as President Trump continues his fight against the election results, Joe Biden continues to announce more members of his team. Tapping Susan Rice to run the White House Domestic Policy Council, that's an appointed position that does not need Senate confirmation. He's also nominated Dennis McDonough to be Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Biden has a long-standing relationship with both. Rice served as National Security Advisor and UN Ambassador during the Obama administration, while Dennis McDonough was Obama's White House Chief of Staff. Well, pro-life advocates say they're concerned about what could come under a Biden administration, worried that a Biden White House would promote one of the most pro-choice abortion agendas in history, with the vice president offering a plan that would forbid states from having the power to stop it. CBN's Paul Strand explains.
What Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would like to see is your tax dollars going to pay for abortions to a degree we've never seen before.
And that would be abortion all the way up through 9 months.
Mallory Quigley at the Susan B. Anthony list.
They've stated this as being one of their big goals.
Although polls show that's opposed by 60% of American voters, including 35% of Democrats.
States have fought back against such abortion extremism in the past by handling matters legislatively, passing their own laws.
I anticipate that we would see something similar to that if there's a Biden-Harris White House.
But Kamala Harris has proposed a way to stop that.
The Department of Justice would be instructed to pre-clear bills that state legislatures wanted to pass that were pro-life. This is a complete violation of separation of powers.
Another sign of Biden's extremism on abortion is his pick of California Attorney General Xavier Becerra to head up Health and Human Services, the agency most involved with regulating abortion. Becerra is aggressively pro-abortion, states Susan B. Anthony list President Marjorie Dannenfelser. In Congress, he even voted in favor of partial birth abortion. Kristen Day of Democrats for Life says some congressional Democrats will fight Biden's pro-abortion extremism.
We're hopeful that he will not be able to take some of his policies to fruition.
But to maybe lower the number of abortions, Day hopes he'd back programs to improve women's economic circumstances so they'd feel they don't have to abort their unborn.
We would rather see money going toward, the Pregnancy Assistance Fund and coming up with innovative ways to support women to actually carry the child to term and support for the new families once that child is born.
Quigley expects Biden would return to his former boss Barack Obama's efforts to make pro-life medical workers violate their conscience by taking part in abortions, and also make pro-life organizations support it in their health plans. Biden says he'd force that even on the Little Sisters of the Poor, who live to serve the elderly, sick, and dying.
Their mission has absolutely nothing to do with the destruction of life, and he would see them be forced to pay for abortion-inducing drugs in their healthcare programs.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Paul. A mandate to make China the greatest country in the world. Why that means trouble for America when we come back.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
Welcome back. Over the years, China has been pushing a plan to dominate the world scene economically, militarily, and politically. Critics say China will stop at nothing to rule the world, and they warn that could be dangerous for America. CBN's George Thomas brings us the details.
The warning from the head of America's national intelligence was unprecedented, as it was clear and unequivocal. China and its communist government pose the greatest threat to democracy and the free world since World War II. John Ratcliffe, director of national intelligence, wrote in a recent Wall Street Journal editorial that China is America's #1 national security threat, and that Beijing intends to dominate the rest of the planet economically, militarily, and technologically. Michael O'Hanlon is with Brookings Institute.
It is the way a great power with a non-democratic government chooses to seek to extend its influence worldwide.
Ratcliffe accuses China of deploying what he calls a rob, replicate, and replace approach in its ambitions to dominate the world.
It's been well known for decades that China tries to copy the industry of other countries and then takes it to scale, makes it more efficient, and largely operates, sort of built its way up through the global economic ranks with that approach.
China's foreign ministry dismisses Ratcliffe's claims while accusing Washington of unnecessarily playing the China threat.
The relevant article with a sensational title does not present any solid evidence at all. It offered nothing new but repeating the lies and rumors to smear China.
CBN News has documented China's rise for more than 2 decades. Fast forward to 2020 as we examine how China's President Xi Jinping has been massively overhauling the country's military, economy, and political influence as part of his great rejuvenation project.
Which, to put it into sort of Trumpian terms, means to make China great again.
Tom Miller documents China's rise in the book China's Asian Dream, Empire Building Along the New Silk Road. Miller says since taking the reins, Xi has been on a trajectory of preparing China to be the world's dominant power.
And under Xi Jinping, China has been very, very deliberately trying to realize its kind of ambition to become the global superpower.
Chinese scholars say it's also part of Xi's deep belief that his country has a divine right to rule the world.
The mandate of heaven is from China's imperial past, where Chinese emperors believed that they not only had the right, but they were compelled by heaven to rule the world. And there's this notion of tianxia, or all under heaven.
One way is by military force. As commander-in-chief of the world's largest fighting force, Xi has remade China's People's Liberation Army, or PLA, into a military rapidly closing the gap on U.S. firepower. The Pentagon revealing for the first time that China now has the world's largest navy and plans to double its nuclear warhead arsenal in this decade, which includes ballistic missiles that can reach the United States.
It is likely that China will seek to build a military that is equal to, or in some cases superior to, the U.S. military or the military of any other great power that China perceives as a potential threat.
O'Hanlon says China's capabilities in emerging technologies such as robotics, artificial intelligence, and next-generation technology and telecommunications now rival that of the United States.
If we used to be ahead of China by, half a lap on the proverbial track, now we're ahead by maybe a few strides. And China is maybe even closing the gap further as we go.
Ratcliffe insists that resisting China's ambitions of becoming an economic, military, and technological superpower will be the challenge of our generation, and warns that America should prepare for an open-ended period of confrontation with Beijing. George Thomas, CBN News.
Thank you, George. A holiday tradition with a COVID twist. That story next.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
And finally tonight, the pandemic might be putting a hold on normal holiday traditions, but it isn't stopping the New York Metropolitan Opera from performing a Christmas concert, though it looks a little different from years past. The sounds of Christmas. Members of the Met Opera Chorus donned face shields and followed guidelines on social distancing to perform a pop-up concert on the steps of New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. This was the first time the chorus has sung together since stay-at-home orders were issued back in March, and they sounded great. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight for Faith Nation. We hope you have a great weekend.